The murder of members of a family that attempted to celebrate Christmas all year has revealed depths of despair, severe enough to overpower every preconceived notion of the impossibility of dark horror that is in man's heart. On the other hand, fate spared one of them to bring justice to crime done against her and her family. But how did she survive? Join us as we investigate the kidnapping case of Amber Daniels and how she made it through against all odds. This is Unsolved Files, a place where crime stories are being brought to your doorstep. What are you waiting for? Just hit the subscribe button for more fascinating and suspense-filled crime stories. Now let's get back into this story and uncover this mystery. With the tragic experience of losing her own children to state custody when she was a teenager, Kim Daniels, who is 33 years old, became a foster kid after witnessing the murder of her father. She was deeply involved in substance abuse and alcoholism up until the time when she met Danny Daniels, who is 47 years old. She fought off her issues, regained custody of her children, and committed her life to her church and to the children, both her own and those of others who were in need of affection. Amber Daniels, the daughter of Danny and Kim Daniels, who live in Santa Claus, Georgia, was pleased when her parents made the decision to provide foster care for children. After some time had passed, she remarked that because their home was constantly full with youngsters, she never had a dull moment and was always able to make new acquaintances along the way. When Amber made such a choice, she had no idea that it would come back to haunt her family in the most disastrous way conceivable. Amber Daniels was just 10 years old when the killings took place. It was noted that she had a difficult upbringing since her mother Kim struggled with substance abuse and alcoholism. In 1997, the Daniels took in Joanna Mosley with the intention of assisting her in evading the unstable environment that she had been raised in. Almost immediately, she and Amber were inseparable and established a particularly deep connection with one another. In addition, Joanna's brother, Jerry Scott Heidler, would occasionally stop by, and the latter claimed that he always gave off the impression of being a nice young man of 20 years of age. Sadly, Amber was completely unaware of the impending catastrophe that was about to befall her family. Danny was dismayed to learn that Jerry had developed a strong relationship with Jessica, the eldest daughter of the Daniels. Jerry was enraged by the fact that the father disapproved of the relationship because of the considerable age gap that existed between the two of them. Since this was the case, he made the decision to take matters into his own hands and broke into the house of the Daniels on December 4th, 1997. Next, Jerry went to the cabinet and snatched a semi-automatic shotgun. After that, he murdered Danny and Kim as they were sleeping in their bed. Subsequently, after hearing the gunshots, Jessica and Bryant rushed down to investigate, but they were also shot down without any sympathy. Jerry roused Amber from her sleep and kidnapped her, along with his sister and Kim's third biological daughter, after perpetrating 4 terrible murders as a result of his actions. Due to the fact that Amber had faith in him at the time, she followed him without giving any thought to the circumstances. However, Jerry drove the 3 of them to a remote location, where he then climbed into the back seat of the vehicle and forced himself on Amber. Before throwing them off on the side of the road in Bacon County, Jerry even forced the other children to watch the violent rape that was taking place. After being rescued by the authorities, Amber divulged the events that had transpired within the vehicle and even identified Jerry from a picture lineup on the spot. Following the release of her statement, the authorities issued a nationwide warning for the suspect. Immediately after the police began their investigation into the killings of Danny and Kim, they conducted a comprehensive search of the crime site, conducted a check of the surrounding area, and even conducted interviews with the 2 children who were left behind at the Daniels family. During the course of their inquiry, the police discovered that Joanna Mosley had moved in with Kim and Danny in order to get away from a family setting that was unstable. After the law enforcement officers talked to the 2 children left behind at the Daniels household, they managed to get a complete description of the attacker and soon identified him as Jerry. Unfortunately, there was no news of Jerry's whereabouts in the initial few hours, although the cops were already on the hunt for him. However, they soon received a breakthrough when a farmer called them, claiming he had spotted 3 young girls on the side of the road in Bacon County, and officers were dispatched to bring the children back safely. Sadly, another shocking detail awaited detectives back at the station. They soon learned that Jerry had parked the car in a secluded location before brutally raping Amber in the back seat. Before we go on, remember to subscribe to our channel, Unsolved Files, where we bring you deeper views of criminal and unsolved cases. Please give this video a thumbs up, share, and comment. Let us know what you think about it. Now, Amber's statement and identification of Jerry as the attacker proved quite helpful to the police, as they could soon arrest the suspect for his involvement in the crime. It was quickly discovered by the investigators that the marriage appeared to be peaceful and unremarkable. and that the Danielses had a high level of social popularity, up until the point where an intruder broke into their home and murdered them for no apparent reason. Their lives were very uneventful. Charles Durst, the sheriff of Toombs County, was located and informed about the chaotic situation that occurred at the Daniels residence. Suddenly, he took leadership of the area that had been designated as an official crime scene. Also, he stopped all individuals who were not authorized to be there. The arrival of the homicide police was unexpected, and they were joined by a medical examiner, a crime scene technician, and a deputy district attorney. The coroner made the observation that each of the deceased had been executed by being shot through the head. Therefore, it was impossible for them to have posed a threat to the person who broke into the house. It seemed as though Danny Daniels had been shot in the back of the head, and it is likely that he was never aware of what had struck him. The force of the tremendous shotgun wind had caused tissue, blood, bone, and brain matter to be distributed across the room. Bloody gore was plastered all over the walls as well as the ceiling of the inside. His young wife had been shot in the face, and as a consequence of the occurrence, she had suffered serious deformity as a result of the violence. Additionally, it appeared as though she had been woken from her slumber by the explosion that had resulted in the murder of her husband, and it was probable that she had come face to face with the one who had been responsible for her own demise. On the other hand, a bullet had been fired at point-blank range into the head of little Bryant, who was asleep with his teddy bear next to him. Yes, he was practically shot in the head while he was sleeping. Due to the fact that the impact of the murderous weapon was so significant, the face of the female victim, who was discovered in the corridor, was almost entirely obliterated. Also, because there was a significant amount of blood in the bedrooms, the authorities couldn't help but wonder why there weren't any more bloody footprints in the bedrooms. After all, there was a lot of blood for them to deal with. They also found a number of shotgun shells with a Remington 1100 caliber lying on the floor of each of the bedrooms where the murders had taken place. The cartridges that were laying on the bed next to Daniel and Kim were found to have tissue bits connected to them. Thereafter, the technicians at the crime lab collected samples of blood and other body fluids, which were then accurately marked according to the source and position of the fluid from which they were obtained. This was done after the scene had been thoroughly photographed in both color and black and white, and then documented. After that, they applied split filter bags to each location and vacuumed to remove any residues of hair and clothing fiber that could have been there. In addition to this, they searched for hidden fingerprints that may be used to identify the heartless individual. After the authorities had finished with the victims at the scene of the crime, the drivers of the mortuary placed the bodies of the victims into body bags and then moved them one at a time to a mortuary wagon that was waiting for them. As the terrifying-looking corpse movers made their way to the mortuary, where formal post-mortem tests would be carried out, a small group of neighbors who were unable to believe what they were witnessing waited from behind barriers constructed of yellow tape. They were unable to comprehend what they were seeing. As sheriff's investigators and crime lab technicians searched for clues and gathered evidence at the crime scene over the course of the subsequent few hours, the sheriff and a large number of Toombs County deputies questioned neighbors in an effort to uncover the identity of the individual who was responsible for the murder. Toombs County prosecutor Rick Malone told a gathering of reporters who had been assembled in a hurry that officials were still examining the girl's statements and offered little information. This was in contrast to the fact that the identification of the perpetrator had been achieved in a reasonably straightforward manner. According to him, they were unable to determine the exact cause of the brutal attack that occurred at midnight on the family. We are not of the opinion that it was a random attack. We are aware that he was familiar with them. It seems he was a friend of the family, or at least knew them, Malone stated. It was shocking that the little town, which is well known for its Christmas decorations and the community-wide display of celebrities, had an unexpected influx of visitors from outside the area who were interested in learning more about the village, became the property of a guy by the name of Jerry Heidler, who had entered the residence and began firing shots at random for no apparent reason. Could it be that something else took place before? Until then, the only person who knew what the something else was the suspect. A village in Georgia that had been filled with happiness and tranquility in the past was now in complete and full bewilderment as a result of the awful mass murder that had occurred. An abundance of hypotheses and speculations began in the city. There was a sense in which it was quite difficult to believe that things of that sort just did not fit into the regular activities that took place in Santa Claus, which is a town that is famed for its tranquility. Despite the fact that it was a scary concept, it was plausible that one person had been the primary target, and the others had been slain because they were potential witnesses. Now, in the event that this were the case, the person who committed the murder ought to have been aware that the 3 children he abandoned may be used to identify him. Given that this is the case, the question is, why did he not get rid of them? Nevertheless, the search for Jerry Scott Heidler kicked into high gear during those initial important hours, which set the stage for the whole operation. The entire county of Bacon, which is where he was last seen, was being searched by both plainclothes and uniformed patrolmen. The search would extend all the way to Alma, which is where his family lived. The quest for Jerry Heidler did not give a very engaging experience when compared to other sorts of pursuits that were undertaken. Agents Jerry Rowe and Bill Butler of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation were dispatched to Alma, which is the place where Heidler could trace his roots back to the beginning of his life, with the aim of finding him to answer to his crime. As the police car reached the front of the home, Jerry Heidler was leaving the house through the front door. This occurred at the very moment that the police car was approaching. At the moment that they established eye contact with one another, Heidler immediately turned around and ran back inside the home. Immediately following the transmission of a radio call for assistance, agents Rose and Butler made their way to the rear of the house in order to forestall any potential escape from the residence. It was at this time that Jerry Heidler's brother came from the house and notified the authorities that he was the only person there in the residence. Detectives from the Bacon County Sheriff's Office who responded to the backup call arrived at the home and quickly started going over all the house. As the officers searched the crawl space beneath the house, they found Heidler crouching in the crawl space. Yes, man, you can run, but you cannot hide from your shadow. Anyway, when Heidler refused to come out of the building, 2 law enforcement officers with their firearms drawn sneaked in and forced him out of the building he was in. Nevertheless, not only was Heidler's brother arrested for obstructing the administration of justice, but he was also taken into prison and held in the Bacon County Jail, without the prospect of being released until further notice. When Jerry was taken before the court, he filed a plea of not guilty and stated that he was not directly involved in the killings. In addition, he stated clearly that he was not responsible for the murders. Come on, man, if you were not the one who did. However, the jury, on the other hand, was of the opinion that he was guilty and convicted him guilty of 4 counts of murder, 3 charges of abduction, and 1 count of child molestation, aggravated child molestation, aggravated sodomy, and burglary. As part of reaping what he sowed, the judge imposed a death sentence on Jerry in addition to an extra term of 110 years in prison in the year 1998. This was due to the fact that Jerry had committed the crime. His execution is now scheduled to take place in the Georgia Diagnostic and Classification State Prison, which is situated in Bacon County, Georgia. Since that day, he has been on the death row and he is currently waiting to be executed there. Amber, on the other hand, has taken a deliberate decision to safeguard her privacy during the course of the trial, and she has been keeping her personal life a secret ever since. The vast majority of the time, she would rather keep to herself and does not provide a great deal of information in public settings with others. In spite of this, she made a guest appearance on the show that is shown on Investigation Discovery, where she discussed the lovely memories that she had of her parents. Amber continued by describing the terrifying experience that she had to go through and mentioning that she still misses her parents and siblings to this very day. Do you think Jerry Heidler's death sentence was deserving of him considering the kind of crime he committed? Please leave your comment down below and tell us what you think. But wait, what if I tell you that a whole family was wiped out of the surface of this earth because of greed? Yes, the video is on your screen. The family that was murdered for £5 million. Go watch it now.